So Porsche put the prices up again. Since I last did the video comparing the C2 base price to other new cars on the market, they have put their prices up approximately 2.9%. And we're now working with a different base price. So what used cars are available for £89,000? Hey everyone, if you're new to these videos, my name's Steve and I'm digging deeper on the cost of ownership. I previously owned a Porsche 992 Carrera 2. If I actually go back and find the Porsche code for when I spec my car and you click through to the configurator, there's the old base price that I paid back in March 2020 with the new price there on the right hand side. You can see there that it actually takes the full price up to £88,848 before road tax in the UK. So the new price that I need to compare the used vehicles to that I'm going to take a look at and run through with you now is the £89,000 mark. The first car that I kind of gravitated straight towards, because I've looked at it before in the past when I was looking at what was available, is the Audi R8. I found an example here that's coming in just under 62. Thing with the Audi R8 is I think they look a little bit like an Audi TT inside. Obviously they're like the bigger brother of an Audi TT, and the TT sold very well, but the Audi R8 inside still screams a little bit too much lower end Audi for me. The next car that I looked at is a BMW i8. Now that car is coming in at the cheapest end of £43,000. BMW i8 isn't something I'd usually go for, but it's an interesting one to throw in because it's the only hybrid one that I found within the price range, and it is only about 6 years old now. So taking a look at the pictures on it there, if we'll have a look at the interior, you sort of got the gull-wing doors in there and you've got an interesting futuristic looking interior. You've still got 2 rear seats in that car as well. So for £43,000 is interesting to look at. It's obviously, you know, side by side with the 911. It's not quite the same car, but it's interesting. It's half the price, and I don't know, it might have a little bit of long-term future with it due to it being a little bit of a hybrid. The next one's an interesting one. I've mentioned it a couple of times in other videos, and I think it's probably one of the only Mercedes I'd ever really want to buy, and that is the Mercedes AMG GT. Now this car, and I've got one on the screen now, comes in at a reasonable price at the £65,000 mark, and it's a 4-litre V8 bi-turbo. It's only a 2015 car as well, and taking a look at that one, I would probably like to go ahead with something like a grey colour in that. I have seen some on the road. Now, the only odd thing that I don't really like about these cars is that rear end looks a little bit squashed with its rear boot lid, considering how wide the rest of the car is. But when we get a look inside on that interior, I do think that's a little bit more interesting. It does seem to be more exciting to me than other Mercedes parts of the range, and I do quite like the interior dash. So that car's an interesting one. It was originally around £106,000 and it's still got a car that's come after it, so I'm not too sure how much this is going to depreciate with there being newer models coming out, a little bit like the Audi R8, but I could be quite interested in that one. It's not too bad a price. So now we've got past some of the lower end costing stuff that was probably not budget, but you know, like something a little bit more affordable, second hand, and maybe is a little bit sensible. Let's take a look at what else is available when it comes to maybe supercars or, I don't know, unnecessary luxury. First car out of that list, and I'm jumping to a brand that I never even thought would be attainable within my price point for such newer cars, is Aston Martin. Now I found 2 cars out of that range that I think are sort of the newest ones there that I like the look of. There are other ones available, but this is like the newest style stuff that I would probably be interested in, and the first one is the 2nd generation Vanquish. Now this Vanquish that I've got up on the screen there is only £77,000, and it's a 5.9 litre V12. It's a 2013 car, this one, and it comes in the sort of James Bond silver. I don't know, that's how I describe it, but the front end, the back end's quite nice on it, and the interior on it looks fairly new and interesting as well. And you can see if we move on to the next photo that we actually have this sort of swivel pop-up navigation thing, so that looks a little bit old hat, but the rest of the car, as far as I'm concerned, still looks very new and fresh. Now the other Aston Martin that I found that was in reach of the price that's just been increased by Porsche that I now need to hit at £89,000 was an Aston Martin DB. DB11. Now this car on the screen, again, yes, I've gravitated towards the James Bond silver. Comes in at £86,990 and it is the launch edition version of this car, so it was the very first one that they brought out with the 5.2 V12 in it. Now this DB11's got the bonnet on it that's a little bit like, I don't know, a Dodge Viper or a Jag E-Type, and the interior on it's got the full digital display in there with a rev counter in the middle, a little bit like the 911. Taking a look at the interior on this car, we've got that center display on there and everything kind of looks very sleekly and neatly designed. And we've also got a lot of controls on the seats in this car. I quite like the idea of this car. I did actually see one on the road for the first time not too long ago when it passed me, and it looked quite big and wide, but I didn't think that it was at this price point. Now the next supercar type of thing that I came up with on this list, and something that I wouldn't usually jump towards either, is a McLaren 570S. Now the one that I've got up on the screen here now is basically the cheapest one there, so it's not as if they're kind of at this price point. This is the lowest one that I could find, and now I've heard a lot of things about quality build on these cars and probably, you know, maintenance costs and things like that I wouldn't want to jump into, but it has seemed to have fallen into this price point. Now we'll take a look back at this screen to 3.8 V8. We can see going back into the interior of this car that we've got the iPad center console and we've got a very clean dash. I think McLaren's, if I'm not mistaken, have got the idea behind kind of having less is more in the interior, so all the buttons are kind of gone and it's very simplistic and it's a racing car style experience. Now stepping back into something maybe a little bit more sensible and probably GT-ish, I found the Maserati Gran Turismo. Now this car that's on the screen is £79,000 and it is actually a 2019 car. Now I've always quite liked the look of these cars, and I especially like it in this dark grey colour with the black wheels. I'll take you back out into the search page on this list. You can see if I go right up to the top, the newest one that I could find, this £100,000 Nerissimo version. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Instead of this one that I've got further down, which is just this one here with the 460 PS, and it's just the V8 Sport Edition. So heading into Italian supercars still, we are now going to look at the only Lamborghini I could find that was coming in at the price point that I was looking at, and that is the Lamborghini Gallardo. Now the Lamborghini Gallardo was Audi's attempt, I think, to bring like a baby Lamborghini into the range, to bring another set of clientele into the brand. Now this Lamborghini one that I'm looking at is a coupe, and it's a 2007 model, which is a 5-litre V10 with a 4-wheel drive. I think it's aged quite well. I don't think it looks that old when you're looking at it as a 2007 car, considering. And if we go back up the top, I can show you that all the cheapest cars that I found, the earliest models here, starting at £65,000, are actually convertibles. I don't understand why these cars are much cheaper as convertible. Usually the convertibles are more expensive than the coupes, but the cheapest ones there are the convertibles. And Gallardo is something I could be interested in. I think size-wise I could probably live with it as a daily driver as well. The only problem is I think it's probably going to guzzle petrol, and I think based on that, compared to a C2 from the current 992 range, I might have to give it a bit of a sidestep. Now the last car that I would take one look at before we actually look at the one Porsche that I want to actually show you from my search history is the Ferrari California. Now this car had two versions in its life, and I am looking at the earliest version of it, and the one that is on the screen now is just the first end California, not the California T. And that is a nice grey car that is coming in there at £67,000, a smidge under. Now I did take a look at these Californias when I was actually having a look to see what cars are available before I was looking at a 992. I've always had a bit of a fascination with Ferrari. I always felt like I wanted to own one, and I did have a look around before I committed to my 992 to just see what was available. So last but not least, and I'll be honest with you, obviously when you're looking for the criteria of a two-door sports car with 380 PS and it needs to be like a 911, well, 911 is going to come up there of several generations. And I did have a look, and what I really wanted to see was, could I get the highest level of a 991, which is the previous generation, and what would it be? Now the cheapest car that I could find that was on there at the highest price point, even though it's the first generation of that car, is the 991 911 Turbo S Coupe. Now, I've actually found this quite nice example here as I want to show you, and it's black like the car that I had, and it's got quite a lot of spec on it on top of what already is included, coming in at £88,000. Now, this is a sort of black on black car. And then you can see that interior, whoever spec'd it decided to put in the yellow seat belt. And if you take a look at the dash, you can also see that they've put the yellow accented rev counters and displays in. But take you back out to the main page there, you can see it's 560 bhp with the automatic PDK. It's got the Burmeister system in there for the stereo as well, and it's only done 36,000 miles. And when we have a look, that wasn't even the cheapest one that I could find. If I go to the top of the page here, there is actually a convertible car which is 78,000, but let's be fair, look how many miles this has done, 89,500. It's interesting to see that I could get into a previous generation 991 Turbo S, and it's something that I could be interested in. Having looked at all those cars, let me know in the comments which one you would go for and anything that I have missed, and I will see you again in the next one. Thanks very much. Bye.